Okay. This is a mess, but I'm currently in the process of moving out. So this is what we get to do. Okay, chapter 34 of The Night Singer. 34. The words seemed to hover in the air between them. Hannah spoke, but nothing she said cut through. She couldn't get Rebecca to look at her. She tightened her grip on Rebecca's arms, repeated the same words again. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you why we're here. Rebecca pulled her away, her eyes still stubbornly locked on the school building. Is that where he... No, we don't think so. For the first time Rebecca met her eye. Hannah sighed to herself. She might have said more than she should, but she desperately wanted to soothe Rebecca's pain, the thing making her upper lip tremble. Besides, it wasn't like she was stupid. Why else would they be searching the woods behind the school? So what do you think? Was it this Fanny girl who... I'm sorry. Rebecca didn't say any more. Rebecca turned to look at the school building again, as though it could provide her with answers. Hannah shouldn't be talking about what they did or didn't think. Not until they knew for sure what had happened. Assumptions were so fleeting. Anything that leaked had the potential to impact the investigation, and that wasn't all. People might also suffer. Children. If their suspicions about Fanny became widespread and it turned out she was innocent after all, she might never recover. That was why Hannah wanted to wait until they knew more before bringing her in. She saw Eric approaching and knew from his face that something had happened. Rebecca noticed it too. What's going on? She asked. Hannah and I need to go back to Kalmar. Why? I'm afraid I can't say. Rebecca gave Hannah a pleading look, but Hannah simply shook her head. Rebecca closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her gaze seemed completely different. As dark as they had been when she was turned away from a bar in Kalmar because she was underage. Hannah's birthday was in March, but Rebecca's was in November. You can't do this, she shouted. Hannah wanted Eric to leave. It was harder to manage Rebecca with him standing right there watching everything. She didn't want him to question her, but she couldn't exactly say any of this, so instead she simply did her best to shut him out. How did you get here? She asked Rebecca. You can't do this, Rebecca repeated. I can't fucking cope with this. Did you walk? Rebecca had often had outbursts as a teenager, but they rarely lasted long. Back then, the best way to make her anger subside had been to ignore it, but that didn't work as well now. Her anger was mixed up with so much else. Yes, I walked, she hissed. We'll give you a lift home, said Hannah. Rebecca reluctantly allowed Hannah to guide her over to the car, casting one last glance at the school before climbing in. Hannah got into the back beside her. Do you want me to call someone, she asked. Like who? Like Petrie or your mom. Rebecca replied by turning away and shrugging off the hand Hannah had placed on her arm. No one spoke as they drove the few hundred meters to her house, and the silence slowly expanded, transforming into something else. When Hannah turned down a last-minute week in Greece because she hadn't wanted to leave her father and Christopher alone, Rebecca had refused to talk to her for 3 days, only to treat her like normal again the next. She hadn't gone on the trip herself, nor had she asked anyone else. In truth, her father and Christopher were only part of the reason. Though Hannah had saved enough to be able to afford the holiday, she wanted to hold on to the money until she really needed it. She had used it to pay for her bus ticket to Stockholm and had also been able to afford a couple of weeks in a youth hostel dorm. She had left for Stockholm without any real plan and had come close to giving up after a few weeks. That was when her grandmother had stepped in and given her some money, and just a day or two later, Hannah had found a job in a restaurant. Before long, she had even managed to find a sublet apartment of her own. Just a year later, she was admitted into the police academy. Eric pulled up outside Rebecca's house, and she climbed out of the car without another word, slamming the door behind her. Hannah had an urge to follow her. It felt like something between them had broken, and she desperately wanted to fix it, but she couldn't. Her job was to investigate Joel's murder. She also doubted Rebecca would put up with her company right now, so she climbed into the passenger seat instead. Okay, fill me in, Hannah said the minute Rebecca had closed the front door. The blood on the blade was Joel's, and there were 2 other people's prints on the handle, Joel's and Axel Stanston's. But what about the CCTV footage? The video came from Securitas, but we've got a new technician examining it in Ove's office. Why Ove's office? to keep it isolated. O thinks the footage might have been tampered with. He's getting people going house to house in the area, and he's sending the technicians to examine the verges between the school and Joel's house. Fanny's too. We need to know where Joel went after he left the school. Hannah was so shocked she didn't know what to say. She turned to look at Rebecca's house. How was she supposed to look in the eye and tell her about this, about Axel, about how she might have been wrong when she said he wasn't on the island when Joel was killed?